3000.
What is doing? My name's Maloney. This is a 3000 podcast. I'm joined today. Well, before we get to the guest, I'm just going to remind people to subscribe and like and follow and do all that stuff. It's fucking free. It definitely doesn't cost you anything, but make sure you do that. I'm joined today by a drummer, a hospitality guru, a business owner, a mate of mine, Clint Hyndman.
That's correct, Hyndman.
Hyndman.
Hey, Maloney.
How you going, man? Thanks for coming down.
Thank you. Thanks for
Again?
having me. Yep. Got it right this time.
So you are a local guy from the peninsula. You have quite a story that has taken you from the Ninch to all over the place and then back down here again. So it'll be interesting for you to share your story with people. Do you want to tell us where a young Clint grew up? I believe it's around here.
I grew up originally, Frankston, born and bred, and we were there for 10 years. Parents had milk bars, so we always kind of grew up with hospitality in the background without really knowing about it.
Hidden a candy store.
Yeah, I actually literally was. And I think I should have a bag of lollies hidden here somewhere because I'm still pretty bad with that. But, I grew up down there and then we ended up down in Rosebud when I was 12. Parents bought a milk bar down there and ended up spending my time growing up in Rosebud right up until I was probably 19 or 20, which was a great way to live down by the beach. We had a milk bar over the road from the beach, so it was awesome. Never surfed, skated, but had a pretty good life down there. And left when I was 19 and thought I'd never come back, like most people do when they leave their hometown.
For sure, it comes calling.
And here we are. Now I'm back down here again.
Is the milk bar still there? The one?
The milk bar is still there. It's quite funny. We got a business opportunity pop up recently, and someone told me to meet me at this address, and it was that milk bar. Wow. So I was like, this is weird. This is almost 30, 40 years later. They're like, do you want to put something here? And I was trying to explain to the guy whose property it was. I'm like, I grew up here. This is that room over there is the room I learnt to play drums in, which I think is now a Thirsty Camel or something. Or a beauty
it's that
spot.
spot.
Yeah, down in Rosebud down. Yeah, so it was kind of, it's weird, but it's still there. I don't think it's been through a lot of owners, but I think like milk bars in general, sadly, disappeared a long time ago. Yeah, and there's still a few around. And
was the plaza there back then?
The plaza was there. I worked at the plaza.
Yeah.
One of my other jobs, I was a trolley boy at the plaza for probably 6 years.
Yeah.
We had the milk bar over the road, and I kind of worked there. But as soon as I was 14 and 9 months, when I was allowed to get a proper job, I went and got a job over the road at Kmart, and basically became the number one trolley boy down there for years, which was unreal. Like, I had the best time, and I think at the time I had really long hair, and they basically, because I was good at trolleys, but I always wanted to get in the store, but I never ever got into the store because I would never cut my hair, and I had this.
That was the thing. They couldn't do that anymore.
I know, but I kind of got it. Like, I know what I looked like. I knew what I was into, and I never got into it. But it was, I enjoyed it. It was trolleys, and there was a pinball parlour around the corner. And back then with trolleys, it was 20 cents to get a trolley. So you would be out there doing your trolley thing, but also making money on the side, 20-cent coins.
Pinballs.
And then occasionally I'd nick off to the pinball parlour. I was a big pinball head, and just go over there and play pinball and play Wonder Boy and Double
Boy.
Dragon and all those sort of things.
Yeah.
So I worked pretty hard there, but it was a fun time. And I think because I skateboarded as well, it was just one of those things you'd finish pushing trolleys and then just skate around those car parks. So Rosebud was a lot of love for Rosebud.
It's like people say that a lot of these areas have gentrified now. It has in a lot of ways, but it's still the same in ways too, isn't it?
Well, it is. I was down there the other day, and it's still, it's still a couple of corner stores there. The people still come down and camp at summertime. I think there's a period there when no one camped down there, and then I suppose it became cool again in the sort of late 2000s, and it hasn't changed a whole lot. It's kind of sad because I think that town is really underutilised, but I think it'll be 10 years from now. I think it'll be the place to be.
Yeah, that's where I am now, and I never thought I'd be there. But it's a good spot, man.
You never say never anymore. I think I never thought I'd end up back down the peninsula, and I've never been happier being back down here.
Yeah.
But I think it's that thing as we get older,
Mature,
have children.
Space.
You wonder why, bringing up kids down here is so much better than, you have that upbringing that they have the upbringing that you had,
Yeah, for sure. So you're skating in the car park. I'm guessing that Kmart's not even open on Sundays, sort of.
Back then, I don't think it was.
So you could skate in the Plaza car park on the weekends. There's no skate park across the road.
Yeah, no, that wasn't there at all. But yeah, no, I used to skate. I was never very good. I just loved skating. And one of my best friends down there, Steele, previous guest of yours, Saunders, his mum worked at our milk bar, and he was forced to kind of be friends with me because I was a new kid in town, and mum worked there. And then, he kind of introduced me to that skateboarding culture, and
he had his finger on the pulse of a lot of things.
A lot of things, yeah. And I loved skateboarding. Don't get me wrong. I was a little bit scared to take those risks, but I just loved cruising around. I loved the culture involved with it, and skateboarding kind of dictated in a way where I ended up musically, because skateboarding obviously had this whole culture around it, but the music that was put to the films was where I discovered all my favourite bands.
Yeah.
So, I always get back on it every now and again and have a little roll. Like my oldest boy is sadly on a scooter full time. But we have a couple of skateboards at home and trying to edge him over to that. But I got back on and he did an ollie yesterday, and I think I hurt my back just trying to do it. I realised, I can't keep doing it. And I stopped skateboarding. When I started playing drums and touring in the band, I really gave skateboarding away because, if you fall over and break your wrist, that's it. You couldn't do it. And I think there was a lot of guys in bands who skateboarded who gave it up to pursue a music career instead.
At least you're changing something sort of that you're passionate about for something else you're passionate about. It's not like you're giving it up because you want to get a full-time job. So
Well,
it's kind of cool.
That's it, And the whole thing was, even when I started playing drums, I didn't think I'd be doing it forever. But it turned out I was a little bit better at drums than I was at skateboarding. So, made the right choice.
I remember Steele telling the story when he goes, let's go skating. You're like, nah, man, I got these drum kit. And he's like, oh, fuck, there goes my skating buddy.
Yeah, it was kind of funny because I remember when I got it and he came over and he sat there and he was pretty disappointed. But I was also quite disappointing to listen to. When I look back at some of those things that I was doing, but that's where you start and, know.
Who would have thought that guy whose mum worked in your milk bar, you'd be, still best mates, 20, 30 years later?
Oh, it's amazing. I think, Steele and I still are super tight, even though he lives overseas. But, yeah, they were the formative years, and we, great mate. And what he's gone on to do is amazing. Just in everything he's done is awesome. Yeah. He keeps everything close to his chest, so I never know what's going on. But, he is he's great, And we both managed to run careers where we're our own boss. A lot of actually a heap of people in our year level at school, we all ended up picking careers that none of us took the route, I think, of going to university and becoming, professionals in the, corporate world. All of us went off in a creative way, a sport way or something like that. It was something in our year level, which is great, and a lot of us are all still doing that somehow.
Was it a boys' school when you went to that school?
No,
was it co-ed there?
No, it was co-ed. It was Rosebud Padua I went to, and then we moved on to Mornington because it only went up to year 10 there.
I think it's still like that.
Yeah, I think it goes to year 9, then goes to Mornington. Then I went to Mornington, and then that's where I met Paul Dempsey there, because the first year I was at Mornington Padua, you just get basically introduced to, a whole bunch of new people. And there's that weird thing with Rosebud versus Mornington, and you make a bunch of new friends, and then...
So he was at the Mornington campus before, and then you both met?
Yeah, he was only there for a short time, but he was there, and we didn't really speak. The first year, we didn't say a word to each other. Paul was the tall guy, playing basketball, on one of the courts, and he also, I'd see him walk around with a guitar every now and again. He was that, more, I suppose, outcast musician guy that played basketball because he was so tall. We never really spoke that first year, and then the following year, when we got my period timetable, I think I had every class with him, and it was really odd that we had pretty much every class. And I think we connected straight away. I think because back then it was a common room and there was a tape player, and you could play music at lunchtime on there, and there wasn't many people that would want to play music, but Paul was kind of always putting his tapes of music up there, and it was a lot of punk rock stuff going on there. And
early 90s?
Yeah, early 90s, sort of stuff. But also, some really indie stuff. And And I remember because he had a Descendants T-shirt on underneath his school uniform, and both Steele and I were massive Descendants fans through all the skateboard videos that we used to watch, and that's how we got onto punk rock. And I was like, how do you know about that band? He's got that T-shirt on it. And that's how we basically connected, was through that. And then we basically started swapping tapes to play in the common room at lunchtime because we were those, I suppose those, weirdo muso guys in the corner.
The tall guy and the short guy.
Yeah, pretty much. Definitely was short, still am. But yeah, and that started up a whole friendship and a whole little scene. And Paul introduced me to a lot of music that I hadn't heard of.
Where was he sourcing it from at this stage? He was just digging.
I don't know. He was right into. I think he was into like. He would find his music through. He had another couple of mates in Mornington who didn't go to Padua. Actually, Joel Morrison, who now owns the Old Bar. He lived down there, and they had this whole deep punk scene. And I think they used to get it through zines and catalogues, and that's how they found a lot of music. So it was a lot of really dark, sort of that, dark, heavy music. But we would swap tapes, and then I remember I would swap tapes with him, and I didn't really click on that he played guitar and that well. And I think I handed him a Bad Religion tape, and he came into school next day and said, I can play every song off that. And I'm like, well, and he brought his guitar in and play every song off that Bad Religion record, and we're like, fuck. And then I was like, I'll play drums, and that's how we sort of started up. Let's jam together and do all that sort of stuff.
Steele wasn't involved? He wasn't?
Steele wasn't involved. No, Steele was part of that skating fraternity.
Wasn't interested in...
No, but he was interested in the music side of it, but he didn't play any music. He played an instrument himself. It could be... I didn't really play any... I could play drums, but not that well. But then, we started chatting, and that's how we struck up our friendship, and we did a band at Padua. There's a Battle of the Bands competition coming up, and we were like, should we put a band together for it?
Year 10? Year 11?
Year 12 it was.
12, okay.
So it was us. It was myself, Paul, another guy called Sam Cowling, and another guy, Travis Featherby, and we put together a band because they were in year 11. These two other kids, and they were into punk rock as well. So we kind of all connected, and we played 3 songs. We named the band Nine Iron, and we played a Dinosaur Jr. song, Freak Scene. We did a Nirvana song, Sliver, and a NoFX song, Liza and Louise. And we did this at this Battle of the Bands. Paul wasn't singing, Sam was singing, Travis on bass, and we got together and I think we jammed once and then played at this Battle of the Bands, and we came last to a band, I forget what they were called. They were a year 9 band, but they played Enter Sandman and brought the house down, because we were sort of sticking to that punk rock side of things.
Fruit though, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. That was the whole. They just went for the easy, cheap pop. Yeah. We went for at the time, quite the alternative songs. So, and that was kind of how we started our relationship as friends who were going to start a band. And after school finished, I went off and got an apprenticeship, and Paul went up to the city. He moved straight to the city. His plan was always to move to the city and start a band and start a career in music. Whereas I kind of was always like, no, I'm going to be a nurseryman. I got an apprenticeship as a nurseryman at a local Christmas tree farm in Balnarring. And I worked there, and then I got a phone call off him. He was like, look, I've got this band up in town. The drummer's left. Would you be interested in trying out?
What year are we talking now?
I think it was 1994. So we graduated in 93.
So it's
kind of 6 months in, 94. I came up and I jammed with him, and at the time it was him and Julian, who's the original bass player in Something for Kate. And straight away I was like, these songs are awesome. Like, this is great. I wasn't, like I said, I'd never ever say I was a great drummer by any means. I played, I fluffed my way through it, and somehow, and I really fluffed my way through it. But I managed. But he's like, "Yep, cool. Let's stick this out and keep doing it." So basically, what started happening was he was living in town. I was living down at my parents' place in Rosebud, working a job in Balnarring. But I'd be driving up every night after work for rehearsal. And then we rehearsed pretty solidly for 6 months before we did our first gig. We waited. Paul was really keen, and I suppose we all were, rather than sort of trying to get a gig anywhere, our goal was to get a gig at the Punters Club in Brunswick Street in Fitzroy.
Which became Bimbo's.
Which became Bimbo's. But at the time, the Punters Club was the kind of venue. It would have bands on 7 nights a week. And it was the venue that him and I would go and see bands at weekly. Like, we remember both Paul and I went and saw this band on a Friday night called Spudgun, who were from Benalla, who were great, little indie rock band. They were young guys. And I remember two of us were standing there and we were like, we can do this. Like, if they can do this, we can possibly do this. So we submitted our demo tape. We went and recorded a demo tape and submitted it to the Punters Club. And Richard Moffat, who was the booker, Richard went on to book, he was the booker for Groove in the Moo and the Falls now and all that sort of stuff. Like, he's gone on. But at the time, he was the booker for the Punters Club and he offered us a Monday night slot, which we were on first at 8 o'clock. And that we were like, all right, we've got our first gig. And our first gig was at the Punters Club. And pretty much from then, we played that gig. And the sound guy was a guy called Mark, who played in a band called Slurper, which was Hurdy Gurdy or something before. But he mixed us and he's like, you guys are great. Are you free Friday night? My band Slurper's playing the Public Bar. So we had a gig Friday night. So we went from Monday and then we got a Friday night gig at the
Public Bar in the city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it all started. It all started, and the whole time I'm like, I'm still working an apprenticeship, on $130 a week down in, and I was in the nursery, so I do a bit of trees, but there was a whole potted nursery associated with this Christmas tree farm, and when you tell
enjoyed
people,
it?
loved it. Yeah. Like, I loved it. Like, I still love horticulture to this day. Like, I'm happiest when I'm in the garden, or I'm happiest, I always had this whole thing. If everything went up kaboom, I'd be happy being a lawnmower guy. Like, aim high, kids. It's just something I just loved, always have.
Like Jim's mowing franchise.
Yeah. Well, like I wasn't a studious kind of guy. I was never going to go to uni and learn. And, I think I've now worked out down the track that I'm really ADHD. Like, I never could have focused on that kind of career. But, yeah, it went, the band sort of kept getting offered gigs after that.
Was Paul singing at this stage?
Yeah.
So he was. So at what point did that changeover happen?
That happened pretty much when I started straight away. So the band we had in high school was just a cover band.
Right.
But the only reason I kind of missed the story a little bit, but when I did join something, I auditioned something for Kate, they did have another singer, Matthew Conrad, who was from Mornington, who went to school with us as well. But he left, and that's when he left, Paul just said, I'm going to have a go at singing.
Because he was writing the songs anyway.
Well, he was co-writing the songs with everybody, but he's like, I'm going to sing. So he just sang. And that's when that's cutting back a little bit. That's when he sang. I was like, how's the voice? Like, back then it was, I was blown away by it straight away. A lot of people probably listened to it and go, it was really gravelly, what it was. But he could sing, he could really sing. And the words were great. And I was like, this is awesome. And I remember playing the demo to my brother. And there was this song called Glue, which to this day I think's fantastic, like, great. We never ever recorded it and released it, but we had it on a demo. And I always hit up Paul. I'm like, can we re-record that? But that's never going to happen, unfortunately. Yeah, I think
the original demo.
Yeah, I know it would be, but it's never. But I'd love to re-record the track. It's a great song. But yeah, so that kind of happened with. Yeah, he kind of fell into being a singer, but I think deep down, Paul always knew he probably was going to sing. Mum was an opera singer. His three other sisters. Was it a confidence
thing, do you think? He needed
I think it was. It was like, and you'll see that just from all the early Something for Kate videos. He doesn't mind. He didn't appear, or he appeared in the videos, but he would never mime. I think it was a lot of confidence with that. I think it's hard. We grew up in a period where it wasn't cool to be,
put yourself
an
out
extrovert and put yourself out. It was not a cool thing. Like, we were hiding behind long hair, flannelette shirts, the whole sort of thing, playing angsty music. These days it's so different. Kids sing from, the moment they can pick up a microphone. My daughter's the same. She'll sit at home and sing and dance, and I'm like, wow, like, kids just have so much confidence now. But back then it was definitely a form of expression, and we were, I don't know, we were angsty teenagers, We that's the way I played my drums. This is why I play the drums the way I do now. I played with a lot of angst, and I think I still do. The minute I get on stage, it ticks over, and I'm like, I need to get this out, and I need to power through it. And it's probably been to the detriment of my hearing and my neck, but that's how I grew up with music, just that pure angst,
It's arguably the last generation of that sort of who cares? You know what I mean? Kind of era, because music changed a bit in the mid-90s,
Massively. Well, I think that the thing missing from music these days that I find is that angst and emotion. Like, I listen to music to feel something, but there's nothing wrong with it. But a lot of the music now is a little bit, it's just different. It's a different thing.
We are two guys in our 40s.
Yeah, we are.
About current music, so it's,
Oh, no, it is. And that's why I won't harp on about it. Like, I get it. Things change and, it's got to move with it. Like,
Yeah. Let's go back to the linear journey. So you're playing at the Punters Club. You did a Monday, you do a Friday. The name is solidified now. Where does the name come from?
Oh, the name is... Oh, the name...
People have got to ask because it is...
No, they asked the name and it's been... and look, I might answer it differently to what other people know about it, but I just remember it being... We needed a name desperately for this first gig.
This is the Friday or the Monday one?
The Monday one.
Right.
And
it's
we had...
foot in the door kind of moment.
So we had 3 names. I think we had Fish of the Day was one of the names, El Presidente, and then something for Kate. And that came from a reminder... Can you go and get something for Kate down the street or something like that? Someone came up with it and wrote it down, and Paul had a dog called Kate, so it all kind of tied in. Anyway, we were actually kind of keen on Fish of the Day, and Richard, who was the booker for the Punters Club, just said, no, I'm not letting you guys...
It is funny to me.
Yeah, he goes, that, I'm not letting you call it Fish of the Day.
Really?
And that's why we're like, oh, we'll go with something for Kate, whatever. Yeah. You don't think 30 years later you're going to be talking about it. You don't, like, a lot of people love the name but you don't think about your band name. You don't think that you're going to be successful with that. Like, what's Def Leppard?
But it's a great name because people are curious about it, and it's one that it's so simple, but I don't think you forget it in a hurry.
Well, you don't, I think, and it's turned out. I really like the name now. I didn't realise how many people are called Kate. Like, that is a really popular name.
That's a good marketing ploy. Everyone feels like it's for them.
Well, I remember someone sent me, I think when Kate Middleton... who married William in the royal family, got married to Kate, the front cover of The Age was a photo of her and the subheading was something for Kate. So it's been used, it started to get used in pop culture a little bit like that, which was awesome. Kind of cool. You go, all right, that's it. But, it also can be changed to something for hate if you hated us or,
Yeah. There you go.
But no, look, I do kind of like the name in hindsight. It is memorable and it has, it stood the test of time, I think. But yeah, at the time, I think there was a band in this, we didn't know about that, but then all these other names popped up, and they're not saying they're because of us by any means, but then there was one that For Love Not Lucy turned up, and then Anything for Lucy. There's all these different names that have popped up. But the funny thing is the amount of people that come up to me and go, are you playing that band, something about Kate? Something. No one can ever get something for Kate, something with Kate, something, it's really funny how it's a memorable name, but it's also said to me in so many different forms.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And so once you start playing your second gig, you got your name set in stone. Does it go? It all sort of happens pretty quickly, doesn't it?
Yeah, it kind of did. We did. We played a lot of gigs, and we played a lot of all ages gigs. There was a whole all ages scene that was happening at that same time.
For the kids that don't know, pre-internet really. So there is a culture of kids sort of doing things. And, calling home phones and that sort of thing. It's a whole thing, yeah.
Totally. It was all run by zines and record shops. A kid would put on a show and put a flyer in a Go-Go Records in Burke Street. And that's how you'd hear about it and you'd go to it. So there was one in Noble Park that we would play at the venue. And then there was another one that started up in the Central Club run by these great people, Fiona and Aaron, who started Scene Star, who started putting on these gigs every Saturday afternoon. And they were basically from 12 to 6, 7 bands, $8 to go in, and it was awesome. You discover all this band. And we started on that scene. We got into it. We got asked to play. People liked it. And so we'd play every second Saturday afternoon, we'd be playing a gig in Richmond at one of these gigs. And that really built our following. So we were also playing a couple of gigs at night, but then, I think we worked really hard to have that, to be a band that played a lot and built their following. You'd go to Ballarat and you'd play to 10 people, and then you'd go back the next time, you play to 15 people. But you never were off-put by how many would turn up. You would just work harder and harder. And then we'd
build your base organically.
Totally. And then we'd get in the van and drive to Adelaide and play to 10 people and do the same. And we worked really hard. We'd tour a lot. that whole time, still working a normal job, still using it, still trying to do my apprenticeship. Paul, we were working at a telemarketing company that Paul, I remember, got me a job where you could turn up, you could work the hours you wanted to work, you could wear what you wanted, but it was really suitable to musicians and you get paid okay. So you'd basically be ringing people up and surveying them, do that, and then get in the van and drive, and that's how we were making a living. But then it got really hard for me because I used up all my holiday leave at the Christmas tree farm, and then I had to make a choice whether to choose between the apprenticeship or choose the band. And I tell you, like the moment I first heard Paul sing, and the first time I was like, I loved it. I remember my brother, who I'd bounce everything off, he was blown away by it, and we were just like, this could actually work. And my parents were so supportive, really, like they never once said you're doing the wrong thing. So basically, I was all in, and Paul was all in and Julian was, and we just worked hard to do it, and things started happening. And then we got we released a demo tape, and a guy, Chris Dunn, came to the show, bought the demo tape, loved it, arranged a meeting with us, and took us out for dinner, dazzled us back. That's what they do back in the day. The A&R guys would take you to a restaurant, and I'd never been to a fancy restaurant before. Here I am, and we're getting dazzled by a record company.
You used to eating dim sims at the Rosebud Fish and Chip shop.
It was amazing. Like I remember, he would be sitting like, "You guys, this is what's going to happen."
Give you the spiel.
Oh, the spiel. The spiel was like, and it never eventuated. But you're the next Nirvana and all this sort of stuff. I'm like, oh, really? Okay. And Paul went to the toilet, and I'll never forget at the dinner. I'm like, I saw Paul get up and go after he'd said this, and I just was like, and I ran up to him, Paul, what are we going to do? Like, I've got a job. Like, this guy says we're going to be the next Nirvana. Like, what do I do?
Yeah.
Like, what are we going to do? I'm going to have to give up my apprenticeship. And Paul, to his credit, was always going to be a musician. That was his thing. And he's like, well, we're in or we're not. And I'm like, no, we're going to do this. And like I said, nothing came easy. Nothing like Something for Kate has always been a gradual climb. And we worked really hard for it. And it's, we're lucky. We've been, I look at bands today and go, it must be so much harder.
Time, yeah. Did you sign with that dude?
Yeah, we ended up signing with, it was Sony Music, but it was the Murmur label, which was a subsidiary from Sony. So it was like an independent.
More alternative.
But it was created because Silverchair was signed to Sony, but they didn't want to sign to a major. So they created this label called Murmur. Wow. And Murmur so the way it was sold to us was like, we're not selling out to this multinational, we kind of were in a way, but we signed to Murmur, and that was like run with 6 people in an office in Sydney. It was like being on an indie label with the funding of a major.
And distribution.
And everything. So we got signed, I think it was Ammonia, Automatic, there was a whole bunch of other bands, but Silverchair was the main band that funded it all. And yeah, we basically stayed on that label for 5 albums. We got a 5-album deal, never thinking you're going to fulfill 5 albums, but we just sort of chipped away. And
was it profitable though at that time? Like when you said
nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing was ever profitable in music for us. Like it was, they would pay for. We would be able to get tour support. So we basically would, it wasn't profitable. We had access to a label who were willing to put money behind you, so you wouldn't have to spend a lot of your own money, but you were taking a risk. And so yeah, it was.
But that's the only way you could really do it then. There's no way you go, well, we're just going to go independent and go on the internet. People weren't doing that then.
People weren't doing it.
Had to sign to a major of some sort.
You did back then, and because, that's the only way you'd be able to get your music heard is through radio stations. Record labels had access to radio stations. These days, you're not relying on radio stations. You're relying on word of mouth. So it was a different time. So that's why, you'd want to get signed by a label back then because they would have the access to.
It was the only avenue, yeah.
Yeah, the only option to get your music out to other places. Like you didn't have Spotify, you didn't have streaming, you was CDs. So it was definitely just a different time. But they were great and they were really supportive, and they never told us how to, that we needed to change any songs. We were able to do exactly what we wanted to do, the artwork we wanted to do, the film clips we wanted to make. That was one thing we had the whole time. We were never told what to wear. I wish they did tell me what to wear at some stage. Just got to look back at those photos, and I'm telling you, I don't know how 90s fashion's back, but I had some really, really bad fashion.
What about the dreads?
Dreads were part of it. The dreads was probably the one thing I look back okay on. Like that's the thing. It was more the clothes. Like it's pretty wild. It But like, look, not saying I'm some sort of great now. Like, I don't think I just don't care so much anymore. But yeah, it was a weird time. And now 90s fashion's back, right?
Yeah.
The kids are into it.
Kids are into it.
Like, they're turning up, all the kids that work for me turn up in all the clothes that were like,
Yeah.
no way would I wear that now. But anyway, that's all right. I'm out of touch.
It's like they've picked the worst parts of 90s fashion to bring back.
Yeah. But it's the same way what we did we would wear,
70s sort of
70s
throwbacks.
cardigans and 70s things. Yeah, like, so I get it. That's just the cycle of life. Now I understand it a little bit
Goes
more.
Like that 20, 25 year sort of cycle.
Yeah. But I'm telling you, the 90s fashion was a really bad one, though. Right, yeah.
But so, because you guys get signed to them, they manage to, I don't know if it's that label, but somehow you manage to get mainstream radio and Triple J kind of support at the same time, which a lot of bands didn't kind of get both. You kind of got one or the other.
Yeah, we were pretty lucky how that happened. I think, weirdly, I remember we put out a single off one of the records and it just, both radio, from memory, Commercial never touched it and Triple J didn't touch it. But then there was a show on Triple J called Super Request, where kids would ring up and request that, songs. And we had this song out for a while.
What
and
song was it?
It was Captain.
Yep.
Million Miles an Hour, or whatever. But it got synced and they used it on Heartbreak High. Yeah. And that week it was on Heartbreak High. It was the most requested song on Triple J, this stuff. And that's, like, people argue this, but I think that's all what really turned it for the band. Getting on Heartbreak High and because it's the only way you get your music across. We weren't necessarily getting played on any of the commercial networks at that stage. Triple J was your only way forward. We were getting played on like your Triple R's, your PBS's, all the other interstate ones as well, community radio. But that really ticked it over. And then, then we started getting played on Triple J a lot more and, the power of Triple J and what it is, what it was. I suppose it still is massively powerful. But, yeah, it just kicked us into another gear. And
that song, I think, made the Hottest 100, though, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. It came, I don't know, somewhere 50 or something. I can't remember, but it did make it, and we were blown away.
For a song that they didn't pick up, that's pretty impressive.
It's amazing, and all our songs that end up picking up in there, we end up with quite a few over our career in the Hottest 100.
Even in the Hottest 100 of all time.
Yeah, I think so. Did we get one in there? I can't remember.
So.
Maybe.
And the Hottest 100 of Like a Versions?
The Like a Versions, we've got a couple in. That was.
I think you got like 2 or 3 in there.
Yeah, well, we got 2, something for Kate and Paul. One Paul did solo, got in there as well. But that was amazing. Like, you don't expect that. And I suppose that's, because the Hottest 100 voting thing is completely different to what it used to be as well. Now it's the power of social media, whereas back then it was a legitimate, if you knew about the band, you would get on and vote. But these days, it seems to be a bit of a popularity contest with how many followers you can get to advertise, but that's fine.
I think
that's
need something like 100,000 votes just to get in the top 100. So that shows you say you've got 1 million Instagram followers, you need 10% of them to jump on and vote for you.
Yeah.
So that's big numbers.
Big numbers. That's why kids probably work more on their bands work more on their socials now than their actual music.
Well, if you liken getting your song played on Heartbreak High would be now like some influencer doing a TikTok with your song. Do you know what I mean? Like, not to say Heartbreak High is some big, but like just to use a different time. And that's the route that I think people are looking at to get their music to pop off.
Yeah. No, it seems that way now. Bizarre.
Do you know what the first ever Hottest 100 song number 1 was?
Was it the Dennis Leary arsehole one? Yeah.
Which the funniest part about that is it's probably the most non-woke song of all time.
Yeah.
Where he has a go at everybody, and now everyone's like, Triple J's so woke.
Yeah.
Like, you probably couldn't find another song that's so fucking politically incorrect.
Yeah, it's wrong. Yeah. What about that? That's funny.
All right, getting back to you guys. So you get signed, you do your 5 albums, and the whole thing goes harmoniously? Like, or you think, fuck, 5's a lot to sign, basically, because you only had demos. You never released anything independently.
No, we didn't. We never had the opportunity. Well, things went harmoniously. Like, we lost Julian, our first bass player. We lost after we recorded our first album.
Amicably?
Yeah, amicably with Julian, for sure. He left because he didn't want that career. He chose... he didn't want to choose a career on the road, which is fine. Like, it's not for everybody. You become a musician, you start touring, and you know what? it's not for everybody to be away from home all the time and spending your time in venues. So he left. Then we had another guy who was short-lived, Toby Ralph, who came in, and that was a weird period for us. He came in, but that didn't work out. And then we were touring with another band called Sandpit, who are a local indie rock Melbourne band. And Stephanie was playing bass for them. And we were touring together, and I don't know, Paul and Steph had a friendship, and somehow she ended up, in the band. She was doing both bands for a while. I remember there was a gig we supported Pavement at the Forum, and Something for Kate was on, and Sandpit, and Steph played in both bands that night.
Just stayed on stage.
Yeah, basically, separate dressing rooms, but go from one to. But yeah, she did that for a while, and then I think Sandpit just disbanded, and she stayed on with us, and to me, it's like basically been Steph in the band the whole time when I think about it. Like Julian, I can't. Such a long time ago, and we catch up every now and again and talk about it. But that was such a long time ago. Like she's been in the band for a long time. Yeah. So.
Do you think having a 3-piece makes things easier because there's less cooks in the kitchen, less people to worry about, that sort of thing? Because it is a small band.
Yeah, I think at the time I didn't think it did, but in hindsight, speaking to guys in bands that have lots of people I didn't think
creative.
Yeah, I think it'd be really hard. And look, I was pretty good. I think one of the reasons we've lasted together as a band is I'm pretty relaxed and can sit back and be, Switzerland in the middle. Because it does get being in a band, you passionately fight about ideas and what you want to do and the direction and so on. And that's making art. That's what happens. It doesn't just happen easily. There's a lot of work goes into it and a lot of opinions and, but we seem to work really well. I trust those two, my life, and we all had and Paul was, we grew up on the school of Fugazi and REM where everything was split evenly. And that's the way we've run Something to Kate. Like it's always been like, Paul's like, if you don't like this, well then it's not happening. If I don't like this, it's not happening. So we worked really well together the whole way through. So I think, to answer your question, a 3-piece is less people involved.
Less moving parts.
Yeah, less moving parts. But then that could be argued, there's a lot of other bands more famously, like I suppose the Police or things like that, where it didn't work. It did work, but it didn't work.
Not 30 years later. Yeah.
But no, it was fun. And I think, but the harder thing is, 3-piece is, as a musician, really puts you out there as well. When you're playing a 3-piece show, like we went back and played our first record about 2 or 3 years ago, I can't remember. But we played as a 3-piece, and I was like, shit, because we always have a couple of touring musicians playing with us now, playing keys or guitar. But when it was just the three of us back on stage, and the first time I'd been that in 15 years, I was like, I can't make a mistake here. There's nowhere to hide, and it was great. Like it was a good feeling, and it felt way more powerful as a band. In that realm, like to play those songs too, which were quite angsty, heavy songs.
Yeah.
It worked really well, and it was ace just to be back to just be the three of us. Like I remember we'd walk off stage, it was a really good feeling to be able to pull that off. And
so when you're touring at those, you're going international. You're touring everywhere, aren't you?
Yeah, we toured through Europe quite a few times.
And they were digging it in Europe?
Yeah, they were. It was starting to work really well over there, especially sort of in Germany and those sort of places. And then we toured through the States quite a few times. Admittedly, we didn't go for long enough at the time because it was quite hard and it was quite expensive, and it is...
Having Sony in your corner helps that international stuff?
Helps and it doesn't help, I think. Sometimes people... It helps in that from a funding point of view, but also when you're on a major... I think it would have helped more if we were independent and you could shop yourself out to a lot of those indies. But look, I think we did as much as we could over there, and then Paul went back by himself and worked it really hard. And him and Steph lived there for a few years and started building it, on that level for his solo career and went really well. But yeah, I think we did a lot of touring, but I think, if we had our time again, we probably would have gone even harder, but it's just hard. It's expensive. Back then, it's just a different way to tour. These ways, it seems a little bit easier to tour these days because you can get your message out a lot easier through social media and so on.
Yeah, you could almost sort of put the feelers out how much of a fan base do we have in this place to
Yep.
see what gigs we're going to play before you get there.
Exactly. You get more of an idea by looking at your following. There, you'd just be going, you turn up to a town and, like...
Does anyone do the local radio?
Yeah, and you're relying on some guy putting your posters up.
Yeah.
And did the guy put the posters up? Has he talked about you in the right way? You don't know. And look, that's where it was, there's a lot of work. But we got on a lot of big tours over there. Look, Silverchair took us over there. We toured quite a few shows with them. Powderfinger, when they were sort of launching, they dragged us along for quite a few shows, or lots of other bands. And so we got, that's how you would build it, is getting on those good support act roles. But
at that point of Silverchair in the mid-90s, if you're touring with them in the US, is it proper fucking, like, bananas, crazy...
Yeah, it was
rock and roll
big.
stuff?
It was big, yeah. They were really, they were at a height. I forget what record it was. It's a diorama, I think it was. But, yeah, it was great fun. Like, playing those shows were great. And they were great. And, yeah, we're still friends to this day, the whole thing. Like, it was a really, really good time. Powderfinger, on the other hand, it was quite funny because they'd come off doing arenas in Australia, and they were sort of starting to build their career over there. So the shows there weren't as big, but they were fun because they were all sold out and small. But they were coming off doing these huge Australian shows to going off and playing, still pretty big in Europe. But like you're playing to 20,000 in Australia and going and pay to 500 over there, whatever it was. But they were building as well, and you have to start again. You are forced to start again and work it, and it just gets harder. But
It'd be humbling for those guys to sort of go back there and they realise, we got to basically start from scratch.
yeah, it's great for you as a musician. And the thing is, you love playing music, you love playing shows. Like no matter, I could play in front of one person, 20,000 people, it doesn't matter. Like I still want to play these songs in front of someone.
For sure.
I love playing music.
So after the 5-album deal, what's the next sort of step into something for Kate's story then? Like, do you
I think what happened, if I could be wrong with this, the timing. The timing is all over the shop, but pretty sure we signed it. We got a new deal with EMI, but Paul did a solo record first, so he always wanted to do a solo record, and we were totally cool with that. I was like, you know what, you should go into a solo record. Like, it's got lots of songs that get discarded that don't suit something for Kate that he wanted to do, and Paul's
more singer-songwriter-y sort
Oh,
of...
kind of that. Like, they're still in the same vein, but Paul's a motherfucker drummer, amazing, on the keys and everything. So he just basically recorded a solo album where he played everything on it.
Yeah.
When he chose to do that, I'd always, for some stupid reason, wanted to own a bar. And he went off and did his solo record, and I remember another friend of mine who was in the corporate world wanted to own a bar too. And we had a chat, we're like, there's a bar for sale. Do you want to do this? And I'm like, should we? Like, yeah, all right, let's just do it. And this is how I've ran my life a lot. I just take a punt. I just take a risk and go for it and throw myself deep in it. And, we basically... So while Paul was off doing that, he did the solo record. And I think in New York, I started a bar called Yellowbird on Chapel Street in Windsor, having no experience whatsoever in hospitality apart from working in the Milk Bar all those years ago in Rosebud.
And seeing lots of bars touring, I'm sure.
Well, it was a funny thing. Like when we tour with Powderfinger a lot, there was always be when we'd finish, there'd be an after party or something, there'd be a backstage bar. And JC, who was the bass player in Powderfinger, him and I bonded quite closely on the sort of late 80s films. And one of the films we bonded on massively was Cocktail, because I loved Cocktail, the film. Right. I just thought it was just the film. And so for anyone who hasn't seen the film... two bartenders, they get up on the bar, when the bar's mellow, they get up on the bar and they give a speech and they try and inspire people to drink and they throw bottles and all
Has it
sorts of
stood the test
shit.
of time, do you think?
I think it's terrible, but it's great. Like, I love it, and I always tell any aspiring bartender, you got to watch it. But JC and I would laugh about it. And so what we were doing, we started manning the bars at the after parties. Him and I would get behind the bar. We'd play these big shows, and then him and I would get behind the bar and start serving drinks. Hammered, just like doing this stuff, because they were private kind of bars. And it was actually a really fun time. And it got me, I'm like, I can do this, blah, blah, blah.
You enjoyed being behind the bar.
I loved it. I think I loved, I don't know, like being a drummer in a band, I didn't really say a whole lot. I kind of pulled out of doing interviews a long time ago because I don't know, I just don't like... I find it really hard talking about the music that Something for Kate creates, given that I don't write the actual words and that kind of stuff. So I kind of started to become a bit more of an introvert of that, and just loved playing drums, but didn't really like talking about it. But then I found I really liked hospitality, and I loved, making people have a good time. Basically, just people have a good time. So the irony is, JC actually went off and opened up a couple of bars in Queensland, and I opened up these bars in Melbourne. But Yellowbird turned up, and me and my friend Dean at the time were like, "Let's do this. What do you want to do?" And I'm like, "Well, we just want to serve cans of beer and burgers and tacos and."
Yeah, that's right. Because it wasn't even a beer tap for a while.
No, there was nothing. It was cans. When we took over Yellowbird, it was an internet cafe. It had computers up the back. Had a phone booth in the middle of the courtyard out the front on the Chapel Street.
Yeah, that's right.
And we got this business. We're like, well, what are we going to do? And so we just put, cans of beer in and made a menu of tacos and burgers and kept the computers though. The funniest thing was it was like this. The idea was it was supposed to be like a Tex-Mex rock and roll bar, but at the start it didn't look like that. It was just an internet cafe with some cans of beer, some long necks to Melbourne, and some good music playing. Because that was the idea at the end of the day. I just wanted, after touring around the world and the amount of bars and stuff I'd go to where you just have a soundtrack of just good music. And at the time, I think Cafe Del Mar, that kind of style of music was really dominating cafes in Melbourne.
Chapel Street, fucking for sure.
Massively.
Yeah.
No one was just playing rock and roll music.
Yeah.
So that was the idea. That was basically my business plan for Yellowbird. Like, we just said, let's just do this. So we started it, and it evolved. And it was funny because one of my good friends who I went to school with, Jamie Kennedy, said to me, "You've got to meet this guy called Nitty." I'm like, "Well," he goes, "You'll love him. You'll get along." And he drinks in the area. There's a big skateboard fraternity in Paran, and he's like, just when he comes in, give him a free drink, whatever. He'll bring people. And because like when you own something like this, people aren't going to come just because you build it. You need a bit of a network. And so Nitty came in and we struck a friendship. And then there was a lot of skateboarders because Paran Skate Park was down the road and they needed somewhere to drink. And
it was the anti everything else that was on Chapel Street Bar.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It was a point of difference. It was a gap in the market.
It was. Well, the funny thing was all the skateboarders used to drink at Blue Bar. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I set up Yellowbird, I had a meeting with Kerry, who owned Blue Bar, because he was a mutual friend of another friend.
And he owned like 7 bars on that strip. Yeah, at that stage.
Well, I told him my idea for it and how I I've got a mate who's going to get some skateboarders. He goes, "Have the skateboarders. Take them." He goes, "I don't fucking want them. I'm like, "Really?" He goes, "They drink a lot, but they're mental." And I'm like, "I'm a skateboarder. It's fine. Can't be that bad." Anyway, so lo and behold, we kind of started getting skateboarders coming in. All great guys, and they did drink shitloads. We had $5 Tecate cans, all that sort of stuff going, and it became a bit of a hangout. And the idea of Yellowbird was what I wanted to build was basically a cultural hub in the area that was missing, in that would play a certain type of music, but you'd get people from all walks of life to come in there. The way I would deck it out on the inside was with posters everywhere of what's happening in the area and all that kind of stuff. But just basically a hub where people could sit, chill, relax, catch up, and then you might meet someone at the bar that has a like-minded, feeling on something. So that was the whole idea of Yellowbird and what it did. And it just evolved and it came that way. And there was a whole scene of people that I didn't realise existed. Like there's a circus stall over the road. There's people into hip-hop, all this sort of stuff, all started coming in. And even though we only sort of played predominantly, say, rock and roll music, you get a mix of all these people coming in there. And I don't know how it happened, because it just naturally evolved, but it became just a place where people felt comfortable, come in, get a good feed, have a beer, and catch up. And it just become a thing. And, I loved it. I worked really hard on that place with Dean, my business partner, to try and, make it what it was. It was an 8 a.m. till 1 a.m., you'd be able to have breakfast. I always made this thing where you could have breakfast, which I think you used to come in for memory at that time, but you'd have breakfast at 10 o'clock at night if you wanted it. That was the whole thing.
But you could also have breakfast, and then after you've had a fucking flat white, someone at the table next to you's got a beer, and you're like, "Oh, do we?" And then all of a sudden you're there for a little bit longer.
Well, that was the thing, and that's what happened with that. And it was great. I loved it happened with that place, and I worked my ring off there, loved it. And I was still doing that, and then I was touring as well. So I kind of was going in between touring and working at the bar, and it was it was a weird time for me because, you'd be working at the bar and then people would recognise you as, aren't you in that band doing that? Yeah. Things not going too well. I'm like, oh no, like I own the bar, it's all cool. Like I just love to work in it, So I just managed to maintain that and continue to work and really found a love of how much I loved hospitality and how much I loved making people come in and have a good time. But this is the only condition is it's my music on there and that's the soundtrack.
It still is to this day.
Oh, no one asked me for anything else. Like I'm open to it if it's a decent song, but no, I can't. Like I don't. I'm really anal about that.
I'm aware.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know.
But I try and create a vibe and that experience, and that's that's kind of where I've gone with it ever since. But yeah, Yellowbird was massive part of my life, and post COVID, I'd originally moved back down to Mount Martha, and I think I had it 15 years. I was a part of Yellowbird, and recently sold my half to Kenny, who worked for me for 8 years.
I remember when he started there.
Yeah.
He was had no tattoos, and then slowly he just sort of grew up to be the dude who's there.
Yeah, well, he bought my half, and it's great. And to this day, like I've been out of it for a couple of years, but I go back in every now and again when I pop past, and it's actually just gone to that next generation, but it's still there. Like it's after probably 17 years, it's still standing and it's still there. And like the legacy of Yellowbird,
still the same as the toilets.
Yeah, stickers. But there's a new But the whole funny thing is, there's a new generation of kids and skateboarders and that come through there now. And that's the thing. I think I realised for my own self, I started feeling a little bit out of touch with who was coming in, but I wasn't living down there, up there anymore. I was living down the peninsula, and as much as I love that place, and I thought I might have it long enough for my kids to work there. It didn't happen, but it was such a fun time and it taught me a whole lot about hospitality, and but it's one of those places I think is really important to Paran as well, and to Windsor.
Windsor.
Yeah.
Windsor. You're onto the right. The right balance of a hospitality venue when your venue is the place that the other hospo workers decide to go to when they knock off.
That was it. Yeah, that started happening quite a lot. Yeah. And that is, that you're doing something right if they're coming.
Because they're generally the people that are kind of got their finger on the pulse more and they're a little bit cooler. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're more artistic and they kind of fucking get what a good bar is.
Yeah, it was great. Like we'd start to have like the Thrasher Skater of the Year whenever they do their tour to Australia. They'd all come in to Yellowbird.
Eric Ellington there and all
there was a whole, Jamie Thomas, there's a whole bunch of them that have been in, and it became that place, but without trying too hard, know. And at the end of the day, it's a bar, but it's a bit of a diner bar. Like, when you look at it, a dive bar sort of, but it's not, But this whole culture that it created, and really proud of that place, and, sad that when I had to move on from it, but things happen,
I think still to this day, people would be like, "Oh, Clint from Yellowbird," like that's almost like your last name.
I know. Well, that's the thing, and like I never sort of, it did happen. Still does happen quite a lot, but I'm glad that Dino's still there, and Kenny, obviously, who worked for him for ages, took it over, and it's got a whole new feeling, and I think it's great. It's still good
for sure. And I remember from my days of trying to venture into the hospitality industry, I know that upstairs had was there a place that had a 3 a.m. license, a big vacant sort of studio upstairs?
There was a studio. I don't think it had a license, but it was a big...
Didn't have the license?
No, there was a big graphic design studio up there. There's quite a lot of things that had been up there. But I think for memory graphic design.
Did you look into that?
No, we forayed out of... Dean and I at the time, after having Yellowbird for 4 or 5 years, thought... We both, matured a little bit and liked whiskey. And so we're like...
Oh, yeah.
So we opened up... we took over a place that used to be called 80 Spaces, which was about 5 doors up from Yellowbird. And we opened up a bar there called the Woods of Windsor, which is our whiskey bar, sort of finer dining kind of thing. But all we wanted at the end of the day was just a bar that had good whiskey and a bit of a different selection to what Yellowbird had.
And a bit more upmarket.
Well, it wasn't upmarket intentionally, but it turned out being upmarket.
Yeah.
And something, once again, which, I'm really proud of at the time, but, it was one of those things where I had these 2 young chefs come in who'd worked for quite high up other chefs. They came in and said, we're going to do this menu. And we're like, all right, let's go for it. And we won Best New Bar in the Age or something after being open for 3 months, and it kind of ruined it didn't ruin it because it's made popular, but it turned it into more of a bar with a bit of food. As with the other day, we were trying to make it something with some good food and a bar, but it got confused a bit and it became a bit of a fine diner to the point where
your target audience wasn't going. I wasn't. I never went, but I was going to.
This was the problem with it, and we lost a lot of the dudes that I thought would come along, and they're like, "Oh, I'm not dressed up enough to go." And I'm like, "You don't have to be. Just come in. Like, just sit down, sit at the bar and have a whiskey." And we kind of lost a lot of that crowd, but we created a whole new crowd. And I learned a whole new level of hospitality because this was a level of hospitality up. So the waiters were waiters, I learned a lot off my staff who work there. The staff that we employed there, I learned so much off them. But we had Marco Pierre White come and dine there twice, loved it. But one of the chefs in the kitchen, Nick Stanton, he went on to start Leonard's House of Love.
Yep.
And now, and then went on to do a bunch of other stuff. But then the other side, the chef he had there, Simon Tarlington, he went on to become, the head chef at Pringa Estate and then Jackalope. But we also ran in, fast forward a little bit, so I had that bar, we had it for a while, then we sold it after about 3 years because the first 2 years were great, but then both those chefs, Simon and Nick, left, and then we couldn't maintain the quality and the level that it was at.
Yeah.
So we walked away from it, and it was quite heartbreaking because we lost a fair bit out of it, but it was something that I was super proud of because it was just I thought it was a cool looking place.
And you learnt some lessons.
Learned a lot of lessons. I learnt more about hospitality in those 3 years than I ever did. I thought I knew everything running Yellowbird. I knew nothing, and I learnt a lot through the Woods of Windsor. And Woods of Windsor ended up staying. I think it only recently shut maybe 3 years ago for good.
Just became the Woods for a bit.
Came for the Woods, did that, yeah. But that still stood longer than it should have. But out of that, I met obviously met Nick, who's a great mate and someone, we hit it off really well. Haven't seen him for a long time, but legend. But then Simon, who was my chef there, and this is fast forwarding a little bit to where I've ended up now. When I moved down the peninsula, I noticed that there's just no bars down the peninsula, and I was living in Mount Martha and playing tennis on a Tuesday night.
Living in Mount Martha, playing tennis, You're fitting into the full Mount Martha.
Oh, I became, yeah. Well, I was just like, one thing I grew up playing was sports. I loved playing sports. Yeah. When you join a band, you give up all your sports. I could play golf occasionally, but one thing is, I moved to Mount Martha. Someone's like, there's a Tuesday night comp. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to play tennis. Like, I love tennis. I was someone who grew up in the McDonald's squad when I was younger, that whole sort of, then had to give away all that to play drums. Playing tennis and chatting to a dude there, you'd meet guys, obviously we put in different teams every night, and this guy said, there's this bar in Main Street, Mornington that's empty that, I think me and my mate are going to go look at. I'm like, oh, yeah, cool. And I was like, at the time, I'd run into another guy, a mate of mine, Cam Marshall, who's a wine distributor, and we'd run into each other at the Mount Martha Cafe every day. And we kept talking about wanting to do a bar down here because we've moved down here and there's not anything going on. And then another mate of mine, Craig Baum, who's an ex sort of, pro sort of skater, vert skater. He was part of that scene I knew him from Yellowbird. He'd moved down here as well, and he was a fabricator and builder. And we all somehow ran into each other and we said, you know what, we should try and do a bar down here. And then, at tennis, I'd heard about this bar that was open.
Had you sold Yellowbird yet?
No, I still had Yellowbird.
You were commuting back there.
Commuting back and forth. So I still had Yellowbird. So once again, taking on too much, but saw a gap in the market, thought, should do a bar here. We found this at tennis, this guy said this location, went and looked at it. It was a place, the old people might know, it was the old backyard bar for years. It's been there for 20 years, but it was empty. We looked at it and we're like, should we do it? We're like, why not? Looks pretty cool. Rent's cheap, And the whole thing with this bar, they said, yeah, you can have it, but it's going to be demolished in 3 years. And we're like, oh, we'll do it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
And that's going to keep your rent down because there's no real longevity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we basically all said, what do you want to do? I said, I just want to do a dive bar that plays rock and roll. We'll do this. We'll work it out. We'll do tacos at the back. We'll do something. They're like, you're going to take care of the kitchen? I'm like, I've never done the kitchen before in my life. I'm like, yeah, I'll take care of it. Be fine. Not really knowing what I was doing. Anyway, we all said, yep, let's do it. We all put in a minimal amount of money. And then Simon Tarlington, who I was saying was my chef at the Woods of Windsor, was down on the peninsula and he called me and he goes, oh, I'm around. I said, come check out this bar. So he randomly walked in. And I showed it to him. He goes, oh, that's pretty good. Reckon I can, do you have a chef? I'm like, no. He goes, I'm in. I'm like, you do it. He said, yeah, I'll do it. And he hadn't even met Cam or Craig before.
Really?
My other two business partners who we'd already signed on the line. I'm like, you do it. So I rang Cam and Craig. I'm like, I've got this chef. He wants to be a partner. Great guy. Can cook great. And they're like, yep, get him in. Yeah. So they'd never met.
Craig would have met him in Chapel?
No, vaguely. No, not really.
Yep.
Craig had moved into. So they'd never met each other. So he put his money in and bang, and then and then we all met up.
Then we met up.
It was so funny. Like, this is the kind of stuff. That's how yeah. And then And then we couldn't agree on a name of the bar, so we ended up coming up with Wowie Zowie. We had 100 names, and the only one we all kind of all agreed on was Wowie Zowie, which is after a record by a band called Pavement, and we just thought, let's just go with that. Yeah. So we opened up Wowie, and Simo's like, I'll do some fried chicken and do this sort of stuff. You know, the two hat chefs, so you knew it was going to be quality food, whatever it was going to be. And we just opened up that bar and started going with it, and it started smashing it, like, from the get-go. We're like, shit, this is going quite well. And I was still travelling up to Yellowbird and working shifts there and doing this and that. And then, you know, lo and behold, we got locked down. Yeah. We were only open 6 months, and then we got locked down.
I remember seeing you on Chapel in one of the gaps, and you were still driving back and forth, and you're like, I'm over this, and I think that's when you decided you were going to get out of it.
Yeah, well, I was thinking about it. I was like, I didn't really want to, but I had to in the end. But then the lockdown thing happened, and that made it really hard. But somehow we did pretty well with the lockdown. We did takeaway food, and it did okay. And then when we reopened, Wowie,
you got that spot through the back, which helped.
Yeah,
with the takeaway.
It all worked out, and then that bar just took off, and it's busy, and like the younger kids found it wasn't set up for younger kids, but they found out about it, and they came in, and you know, lo and behold, it became, you know, pretty rocking sort of bar. And
again, when people knock off from the other hospo venues, they'll go there. You're on the right.
Yeah, I had them coming there. I had that, but in Mornington hadn't had a bar like that. It had nightclubs, had pubs, but it never had an actual bar like that. And it worked. And I was like, and I was pouring beers like, you know, Young Henrys and all this sort of stuff that no one was pouring down on the peninsula, just trying something different. And it worked really well. And, you know, we only had 3 years though. So we were like, shit, how's this going to go? But so because I only had 3 years, we were like, we need to find something else to move on to. And with the money we were making from Yellowbird, from Wowie Zowie, we put aside, and then we came up with this concept for a diner. And then we found a location, and then Lucy's Diner was born, which is about 2 kilometres from where Wowie is. It's off Main Street. It's in a side street. So we created this diner where we spent a lot on it and decked it out.
What was it previously?
It was a Thai restaurant.
Okay, yeah.
So then all of a sudden we created this diner, Lucy's, and we had this idea, once again, like an easy, like a good bar, good music, burgers, you know, just somewhere to hang out, you know. And that happened. And then COVID happened there the day that was supposed to happen. The second lockdown happened, I think, and the day we were supposed to open that. And we had to change the whole menu to become takeaway. And the takeaway menu did really well there. So we moved the Wowie menu there. You know, all this stuff happened. But we ended up with 2 venues. All of a sudden we had 2 venues and shut, you know, had them both shut for COVID. But they were both venues that were going okay. And then stupidly, we had a lot of takeaway for Lucy's going to Mount Eliza, and we heard about a shop available in Mount Eliza. And we by no means wanted to be hospitality moguls or anything like that. We just wanted to open cool places where people can go. Yeah. And I've got 3 kids. I haven't got time to be doing what I do, but somehow I still do it. But I ended up, we went down to this pizza shop in Mount Eliza, and we're like, this is a pretty good deal. This is pretty good. So we got it for next to nothing. So then we opened up Slim's Hot Pizza. So all of a sudden we're stuck. We've got 3 venues and
spread pretty thin.
Spread really thin. But at the time, post-COVID, people came out hot. People were spending, people were drinking, people were eating. But I was also creating stuff that I was really proud of and stuff that wasn't on the peninsula, I think. You know, there are lots of other bars on the peninsula, don't get me wrong, but in our area and the way we do things. And I just
you brought a city mentality down the peninsula, basically.
Well, trying to in a subtle way. But I just love creating stuff. I like staying busy. Like doing things that, you know, make people happy. I don't actually go out and drink myself a lot. Anymore. You know, I don't drink anymore anyway. But Wowie Zowie drove me sober. 2 years, no drinking, nothing. So it's like,
have you been 2 years now?
Yeah.
Wow. We'll talk about that soon. But
Yeah, it's good. But but then created Slims, and then we sort of all of a sudden had this whole little group going, which was great. But like everything at the moment, things aren't flying. But Wowie's we did all these because we knew Wowie was going to end, but Wowie just kept on going, and we're up to 4.5 years of Wowie being open. Supposed to shut after 3 years. Now we're on a bit of a deadline where we were supposed to close in April, and then they gave us an extension again, and now we're technically there till the end of July. But who knows?
But it was July last year.
It was. But this time they seem a bit more certain with it, but we don't know. We get a phone call and we're month to month now. So the whole thing is, when's Wowie closing? People think it's closing. And it's the hard thing with Wowie, it's built up such a following down here now. People love it, which is great, which has made me so sad that when we do have to close it, where's it going to go? What am I going to do? Like, I just don't know. You can't find anywhere. Like everywhere these days, rents are too high. You've got to find the right location. Liquor licenses are hard to get. So I'm in a real spot where I've built this great little scene of people that come to a bar that, respect what the bar is. And, it's a party bar, but it's also a bar where, like Yellowbird was, like-minded people come, people talk, people meet each other, marriages are born, friendships are started. All this stuff happens out of it. And it's the best, so it's going to be really sad when it actually goes. And I still to this day don't know the exact date that it's going to go, but it's going to go. But that's why we started Lucy's and started Slim's. And now we've recently taken over a place called Humdinger in Frankston, which we took over 6 months ago because we thought maybe we'll rehome Wowie there. I don't think we're going to rehome it there, but Humdinger is its own thing as well. And, I've come full circle. I was born in Frankston. I've ended up about 100 metres from the hospital bed. I was born with a bar there. Now, back in Frankston.
So you're not going to call upstairs Wowies, because I thought that was originally the kind
It was a plan, but I think now we've sort of seen that it's a little bit different down there, and we want to I think it's carving it out its own vibe down there. And I think one thing I've learned through this whole process is Wowie's Howie is Mornington. There's a whole different clientele in Mornington.
I thought that as well, man.
Yeah, and so we're actively trying to find somewhere in Mornington to move it to. Whether we can, whether we can't, I don't know. But we are actively looking, and it's a bit like
because whether those kids will travel to Frankston, like they will, but I think it needs to have a knockoff spot needs to be within Main Street areas.
I just think there's a lot of bars opening up in Mornington at the moment, but no one I think is doing what we do down there, which is just like I said, just a simple bar, really, nothing special, just a good vibe. That's basically I hate dumbing it down to that, but you just try and create a good vibe for people. And I love being, the short, angry guy behind the bar who, can tell people off if they're too drunk or whatever. Like, it's just what I do. But I enjoy it. I love working there and I love what we've created. So, yeah, it's...
You mentioned that you haven't drank for a while. Is serving mumbling drunk idiots like myself something that put you off drinking? Or is it something that just needed to happen?
I think it's something that needed to happen. Like, anyone will say, like, I am 20, I run a Peter Pan kind of lifestyle, 21 forever. I've got to be realistic. I'm not getting any younger, but I also love the lifestyle that I have, which is working in bars. But, you 3 kids at home, it is, a hard lifestyle. So, I basically made the decision to give up drinking when I had to relearn the first Something for Kate record, because when we went out into 3-piece, I'm like, I need to clear my brain of all these bars and that and just try and focus on the songs. And, basically just, decided to give up the drink, which I wasn't drinking heaps, but, you could say a hospitality lifestyle. So it's not just drinking. There's a lot of other shit going on and, at my age, it's not great for you. So made the decision to give it up, jumped on 0 beers, the heaps normal beers, which was great. Like, that was just an easy way to get around that. But then
Craig already had that locked down. He's like, this is the way to do it.
One business partner's already done it. So I don't know, I find it a lot better, and I can deal with people that are drinking way better. I actually enjoy my job way more, and I think I just enjoy life a lot more. And it's really bad for business for me to come out and talk about it. But I think... and my business partners hate me even mentioning it. It's like, don't talk about your sobriety.
Right. Sorry, boys, we won't talk about it for too
long.
But
I'm like, but it is, you got to do what's right for you. Like, and I work in a bar 5 nights a week. Drinking for me isn't great. You work a 9 to 5. You reward yourself with a drink and party. Yeah. No, I've got no issues with people drinking. But for me, my lifestyle didn't work. And really, who knows? I'll be from a year from now. But I think the sobriety side of things has just made life, a lot better for me.
Yeah, for sure. And realistically, it hasn't changed the way that you work behind the bar. If I walk in there and you're like, oh, there's Maloney, a couple of mates, you'll still be like, here's a couple of shots, boys. You know what I mean?
Totally.
So it hasn't changed that thing, but it's changed. You might give people a couple of shots, but you're not having one with them. That's the only difference.
It's the only difference. People are like, you're no fun anymore. I'm like, yeah, I'm actually more fun now. I actually, I find myself less snappy, more fun, and I do enjoy it, and I can be around drunk people easily. The hardest thing with me now is that you talk to people when they're drunk and then you see them on the street when they're sober and they're completely different. I'm like, hang on, that's the one thing I'm trying to get my head around because they don't, hey, and I'm like, oh shit, that's right. I've spoken to them when they're fully out of it. And so you got to affect it. Yeah, alcohol changes people. And
for sure. When I first started going to Wowies, there was a bit of a party behind the bar atmosphere, and then it sort of changed to the dry bar around about coincidentally when you sort of stopped drinking.
Oh, totally. I run full dry bars now. Like that's
some of the girls like, now that Clint doesn't fucking drink, it's dry bar bullshit.
I know, but things are way better. Like you know,
and it's still like that.
Yeah, totally. Like I don't, I think I prefer it. I think we give better service. Look, after 20 years of doing hospitality, it should have been like that the whole time. But doesn't, like I say, not that it's wrong. No. I'm not anti-drinking, drugs, whatever. People do what they want to do. But, for me in my personal situation, it's just best that I sort of,
for sure,
take it easy. And like I said, not getting any younger. No. I'm still Peter Pan.
Yeah. But the last night of Wowies, I think you said you might have a drink.
I don't know if I will.
Really? So you literally think you'll never probably drink again?
Oh, no, it's just got to be the right moment. I don't know. Like, I really miss a glass of red wine and I miss a nice whiskey, but I don't miss being absolutely shit-faced and saying shit you regret. Like, I just don't miss that. Like, I think that's the thing.
The anxiety.
The anxieties that go with it. I think the anxiety of drinking and feeling crap the next couple of days and, I think having no regrets is the main thing. But
I think a lot of people that are big drinkers or that just party and live that hospo life are just better at dealing with the anxiety the next day. And as you get to a certain age, you get less good at dealing with it, which makes you think, I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
Do you reckon that? I think that's what happens.
Yeah, I think so.
It's always been there.
Yeah.
If anything, we were doing stupider shit when we were younger.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Oh, God. We could go on a whole podcast about the stupid shit I used to do. I've fallen out of moving vans. I've fallen off through glass coffee table. I've done a lot of stupid shit. That's the thing. That's probably why I've fallen off the bar at Wowie one night. I think I got up and did a thing and fell off. Like I was.
There would have been sometimes you're like, did I lock up? I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, look, I partied hard, but I needed to give it a bit of a break.
We're back with a fresh bottle of water, Clint.
Yeah, beauty.
What were we just talking about? I can't even remember.
I can't remember. How I ended up with all these venues. I don't know,
and potentially more.
I had no intention to end up with all these venues and, potentially more, but potentially less as well. I think when Wowie leaves and, the focus is definitely with Humdinger in Frankston is to sort of spend a bit of time there and try and make that, do in some ways what we've done in Mornington, but try and do that in Frankston. And Frankston's got a bit of a rebirth going through at the moment where, apartments are going up and that sort of stuff. It's happening. And
when you see things, sorry to cut you off, when you see things like Betty's Burgers and, Holy Moly Golf and that thing pop up, you know that those companies have put a fair bit of research into what's happening in this area and knows that it's a growth spot,
Definitely is. And like Humdinger backs onto the Frankston Arts Centre and the Frankston Arts Centre has some amazing shows weekly down there at the moment. And they're really, that's building that whole culture in Frankston again and things are changing down there. And I think, like once again, if we can put a good bar down there, there's a lot of people moving from the city with the cost of living going up. For people having to deal with it, and they're moving outward, and a lot of people are moving down the peninsula, and so people want those bars and restaurants that we have in the city and that kind of equivalent down there. And Frankston is starting to launch. There's a lot of big breweries about to open up down there.
Really?
And apparently, I've heard rumours of a couple of names opening up down there. And look, we just want to provide a good bar down there for people to go to. Once again, nothing is down there that has what we do. And it's like when Danny Young opened up Frankston Tattoo down there 7 years ago, putting a really good tattoo studio down there.
Yep.
here's the first one to take a risk down there, and there's people down there who want that, and just a different style of studio down there, and that's what we're trying to do, a different style of bar down there that appeals to that crowd that are there, that don't have to jump on the train and go up to the city. And yeah, like I said, bands are playing down at the pier again all the time now. So it's starting to have a bit of a rebirth, and that's something that's definitely missing from the peninsula in general, is a good live music venue where your bands can play. And even at Humdinger, we've managed, I've got Tim Rogers playing at Humdinger in a couple of months upstairs. We've only got a small room up there, but we want to be able to provide, a place where people like that can come down and play those small intimate shows and do something cool down there.
You can phone in some favours for people like Tim Rogers and go and come play in our smallish venue.
Exactly. I'm amazed that he said yes to it for me, but that's, we've got good. It should be a good show, but we're trying to get that thing happening down there. And,
Frankston City Council is actually sort of coming to the party, and they want, I think when you look at somewhere like Stonington, right, where Yellowbird was, if you want to push your license, it's going to be hard. But I get the vibe that Frankston kind of is willing to let more of these venues open up. They want people to be doing more shit.
Well, they want more stuff down there. Look, it's hard. Getting licenses in any area is really hard, but they are being as proactive as they can be, and they've been great to work with so far. So, like I said, we don't want to set the world on fire. We just want to provide a place where an alternative to something else down there, and provide something that's not there. And, so far the vibe has been great down there at Humdinger, and, people are enjoying it. So that's all we can do.
Will you ever open a venue that plays anything but rock music?
Basically. I'd love to open a band venue. I'd love to open a venue that you could have bands at. We all know the struggle these days with venues and how hard it is, and the insurance premiums are so high to put live music on. That's one thing that needs to change. They need to change how hard it is for live music venues to put shows on. We all want to put more live music on, but the added cost that goes onto it is huge, and that's becoming a battle, and that's going to ultimately hurt our music scene down the track, because there's nowhere for bands to play anymore. Like I said, when we started Something for Kate, there was a million places to play. You could play Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night. Now those venues are starting to dry up, and something's got to change, because, one thing we all love is live music, and you need governments and councils to get behind this and start supporting venues a bit more, because venues are struggling. Hospitality in general is really hard at the moment.
For sure.
Really hard.
I was going to bring that up, but it is, look, I know that the tax on booze is huge. It's also accompanied with, I guess, kids not going out as much as they probably did in previous generations. And, your Exhibit A, people not drinking as much. So it's hard for these hospitality venues to make a buck, man. How much is taxed? Booze, it's taxed a lot, yeah?
Yeah, booze is taxed really highly. And, you can only charge so much for a pint of beer, but you put everything else on top, your rents and your cost of staff now is super high. The ability to get good staff is hard. Things are really hard in that hospitality side. People are coming out, but, whereas they used to have maybe 3 or 4 drinks, they might have the one, They might not have the dessert after their meal. They might split a meal. It is really hard, and everyone is doing it really tough at the moment. There's no doubt, and we're at the lowest point. But, you need those places there. It's why, it's why we work as hard as we do to provide, you want to provide places that people can come out to and enjoy themselves, but not have to spend an arm and a leg. But it is getting harder.
For sure. And I remember when I first started sort of dipping my toe into hospitality 20 years ago, people would say, you don't make money in food, but now it's hard to make money in booze. You've got to make your money in food, isn't it?
It is. It's you do have to make money. And you've got to give people a reason. You put food in a venue so you can get people in and not just to drink, but it's a social. We're social creatures, and you want to be out having a meal and talking with friends, and it's great for mental health. These places, you got to get out and see people and have fun, but it's getting so hard for people to be able to spend money, and the cost is going up, and we try and do what we can do to keep things cost effective, but it's hard. And
one thing we don't need is for all the independent places to get squeezed out the market, and the only place you can go to a real pub is the Sporting Globe or something. Do you know what I mean? That makes me kind of sad to think that that's inevitably the way it's going if people don't support these sort of joints, and if the government keeps putting the taxes up.
Well, it is happening. Look at Mornington. Mornington's become Chadstone Food Court down the end, where all these great little boutique bars and restaurants are closing up because the rents are high. And even Wowie closing in Mornington, you're taking, and that's not our choice, obviously. The landlords are developing the building to probably put something like that down there, which sucks, but they've got to make money themselves, so I can't begrudge them that. But
do you know what the development is? Is it multiple dwellings?
I think it's, from what I understand, it's a 3-story apartment building with a restaurant underneath it. Not restaurant. Could be any sort of retail, commercial space underneath it. But sadly, that doesn't work for the kind of bars I do. I want the shittest spot in Mornington, and I want it to be that kind of place. So, and the rent will probably go up by 10 times. So it's just, sadly, it's really tough. And I think that's happening across the board. You're seeing restaurants close weekly at the moment. Big restaurants are closing weekly because it is hard. The cost of living has gone up a lot. And I get it. I've got a mortgage. I get it. Every time it goes up, you freak out and you tighten the belt on things. So I don't know. You just encourage people to go out and support your local place as much as you can. That means buying one coffee every now and again. Do what you can to support it. I'm not telling people to steer away from the franchises because they're owned by small families as well. But, support those bookstores, record stores, support as much as you can if you want them to be there.
Yeah, man, I'm 100% behind that.
Yeah.
For sure. It's I can't understand why anybody would go to get fucking this is really pissing me off. Pizza from Domino's. I'm what's wrong with you? There's independent, better pizza places out there.
Totally.
What is wrong with these people?
It's hard. And look, even down to music. If you can't afford, music you don't pay for as much anymore. You listen to it on Spotify. So buy a T-shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah, buy a T-shirt. Or it goes directly to the band. Try and support these guys because everyone's doing it tough just to create. I'm in the arts industry where we're all about creating stuff like that. And we it's tough. And it doesn't just go from the rock music side thing. It goes to the ballet. It goes to the orchestra side. It goes to all sides of the arts. We just need to be trying to support this stuff as much as we can. And, Frankston City Council are great. They're putting on events weekly, light festivals and all this sort of stuff to keep people interested.
And the Big Picture Festival a few months back.
Exactly. So much good stuff happening and you just got to get out and do it. And look, I'm guilty. I don't go to a lot of it because I'm in there working a lot of the time. But, it's just really important to keep it happening.
For sure. Something for Kate. I think you formed in 94, which means that it's 30 years, man. So is that some sort of anniversary or what's happening for the
I think we're done with doing our anniversary shows. We did our 20th anniversary, a 25th anniversary. Now we're just trying to...
you're just we don't want to hear.
Oh, it's hard, isn't it? It's funny when you get kids that come into the bar and they're you playing that band. I'm some people you knew, and I'm look, it's more than... We've been going longer than you've been alive. It's been going longer than half my life. It's a lot, but I'm very lucky to be able to still do it. And, we'll keep on playing. We've got no intention to stop playing. Paul's obviously in the middle of a record he's done with Bernard Fanning from Powderfinger at the moment. They're off doing something, which
Artwork's sick with those guys with the arcade table.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's really cool. And the record's,
was that?
From what I've heard of the record, it's great and it's different. And yeah, look, it's a great thing and it's great for the band and it's good for, but we'll be back. I think we're talking about doing a new record maybe next year from what I gathered. We've got, both Paul and Steph have written a couple of songs already for that new record.
You're not writing any songs?
No, I don't write songs. So I just sit in the background and say yes or no to stuff. But I wish I could, but I just decided to stick to the drums. So
fair enough.
All these years of sitting in studios, I never taught myself to play anything. And the sad thing is my oldest boy, Milo, started playing drums as well. I'm jump on the piano. He's I want to play drums. I'm oh, okay, well, you're going to be sitting in the background, not writing. Yeah. But it's great. It's awesome that he's following it. We got to play the Anzac Day game recently,
huge,
which was, biggest thing.
100,000 people?
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah.
It's great fun. That was an amazing experience. And I got to, take two of the kids along to it and they got to see, what Dad does, why Dad's so deaf, why he can't hear everything that they say. But that was an amazing experience to get on just that whole day in general, be a part of it and watch the MCG go from 0 to 100,000 in a couple of hours and be there for the last post and just to be able to play 3 of our songs in front of that people and for the AFL to get behind and support Australian music, and that was enormous,
Did you stay for the whole game? It was a draw, man.
We stayed for the first half before Sonny, my middle one, was too loud for him. He doesn't like the loud noise. And it was an awesome experience. We had great seats and everything there. But yeah, I actually went back and went to Wowie that night and continued on working.
That's another thing with the 3 kids, though, man. Like, just not only the touring lifestyle, but the nights. Like, it must be hard having 3 kids and 5 nights, maybe sometimes 6 nights a week. You've got to be at work. It's tough.
It's a lot. When your kids play sports on the weekends and you walk out of Wowie at 2 o'clock and you're in a car at 7:30 driving to Elsternwick for a soccer game, But I love it.
You're not hungover now, though.
That's it. That's what makes it a little easier. But look, I love it. I love watching, it sounds, I don't know, it's just watching my kids grow up and be and soak up life and play sport. It's awesome. Like, very lucky.
For sure. Well, I know that speaking of spreading yourself pretty thin, you've got to get yourself to work as well, man.
Yeah, still got to. Got to get off to Humdinger now, and it's never stops. I don't stop. I don't think I ever stop because I don't want. The minute I stop, I know it's going to be hard to get back up and start again. So keep on going, and I think it comes from that growing up in milk bar lifestyle. Is that I watch my parents, work non-stop, and I think I do it as well. I will take a break eventually.
Yeah.
One day.
One day. Well, Clint, thanks for coming, man. I appreciate it. And if anyone wants to catch Clint, go down to Wowie's, Humdinger. You'll be at one of them.
I'm at one of them all the time,
Boosie's, fucking Slims.
Yeah, I try and get into all of them, mainly Wowie at the moment, but I'm not at all of them. And, it's, support your local bars and restaurants and,
For sure.
come to a show one time.
All right. Thanks for coming, Clint. I'll catch you next time, man.
Thanks for having me, Maloney.
Cheers.
3000.